much is an hour of your time worth? Whether you're a realtor, lawyer, accountant, or even a content creator, Stamps.com gives you the ability to focus your time on what you do best, not on tedious mailing and shipping tasks. Print stamps, shipping labels, or certified mail forms in seconds. More than 4 million customers have relied on Stamps.com to make their lives easier. Go to Stamps.com/audio for a special offer. No contract, cancel anytime. That's Stamps.com/audio.
Jennifer Harris disappeared from Bonham, Texas on Mother's Day 2002. The secrets in the Jennifer Harris case have been hidden for 20 years.
When someone disappears, you have to look at who would benefit from their disappearance.
What happened to Jennifer Harris, and who is responsible for her death? Coming May 10th, Final Days on Earth, Season 2, The Life and Death of Jennifer Harris. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 269 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing well. How about you?
I am doing very well.
Fantastico,
as you would say.
Yeah.
We got a lot to get to. Let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout-outs. We had Elizabeth Gibson.
Hey, there's a Gibson.
Janelle Bidenstadt.
What's up, Bidenstadt?
Keisha Clevenger.
Hey, Clevenger.
Ray 27.
What's up, Ray?
Olga Grinchenko.
Well, thank you, Grinchenko.
Betty Steele jumped out at her highest level.
Hey, there's Betty.
Jericho M. Ross Jr.
Hey, Jericho.
Jenny Heather.
Hey, Jenny.
Tara Spender.
What's going on, Spender?
Black Panther.
And I've heard that's a pretty good movie.
It is. It's excellent. Alexis Barrett.
Hey, Alexis.
T.A. Webb.
Well, thanks, T.A.
Gabrielle LeBlanc.
Well, appreciate that. LeBlanc, one related to Matt.
Matt LeBlanc?
Yeah.
How you doing?
Yeah.
Walker Bykowitz.
Hey, Bykowitz.
Tammy McLaughlin.
Appreciate that, Tammy.
Bam.
There's Bam.
Kylie Hayes.
Hey, Kylie.
Kristen McWhorter.
Thank you, Kristen.
And last but not least, Cindy Bates, who
Hey.
jumped out at our highest level.
Look at that. Bates in the house.
Yeah, exactly. And then if we go back into the vault, this week we selected Lisa Wood Gray.
Hey, Lisa Wood Gray.
So thanks to everyone on Patreon. And then for PayPal, we had Helen Falk
Thank you, Helen.
and Kelly Klontz.
Oh, thank you, Klontz.
So thanks to everyone. Gibbs, we have a ton out right now. We dropped a Patreon episode last night on Kathleen Dorsett. An interesting case. I mean, really a question of how far is a family willing to go for you?
Yeah, where's your dedication to your family?
Well, in this case, Kathleen's family was willing to kill for her. So if you're a Patreon member, check that out. If you're not, now's a great time to sign up. We also have a brand new episode out on True Crime All the Time on Tsutomu Miyazaki. And Gibbs, there's really no other way to say it, but you know, this is a brutal episode. You can see why this guy is one of Japan's most infamous serial killers.
It's definitely very shocking.
Yeah. I mean, the acts he committed were extremely heinous. All right, buddy. Are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
I'm ready.
We're talking about the unsolved murders of the Dupont de Ligonnès family. So we're headed to France. I didn't take French in high school, so we'll do our best.
It's been a while since I had to throw around my French language.
Well, you throw around a lot of languages.
Oui?
I'm not sure how successfully, but we'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
The Dupont de Ligonnès were a French family with aristocratic roots going back centuries. They were well respected and highly regarded in their community. In April 2011, neighbors noticed that they hadn't seen the family leave the house for a few weeks. The police found all of them buried underneath the garden terrace, except for the father, Xavier Dupont de Ligonnès. He was missing. The Dupont de Ligonnès family consisted of patriarch Xavier, who was 50 years old in 2011. His wife, Agnes, was 49. Their oldest son, Arthur, was 21 years old. Thomas was 18. Anne was 16. And the youngest, Benoit, was 13 years old. Arthur was Agnes's child from a previous relationship, but Xavier adopted him and changed his last name. According to Unsolved Mysteries, Xavier was known as a loving and devoted father who was involved with his children like a father hen.
Interesting comparison.
Sure. Xavier Dupont de Ligonnès was born on January 9th, 1961. He descended from a family of French aristocrats. His father was Count Bernard Hubert Dupont de Ligonnès. His family history can be traced back centuries. Xavier lived in Versailles, a suburb of Paris. Many of the people living in this area also come from noble families. According to the Mirror, Xavier once wrote in emails that he considered himself part of a Roman Catholic elite, which was superior to the masses.
Sounds very full of himself.
A little bit. He also wrote, I think I've got a superiority complex, and you could call it that. But it's based on a simple observation. I belong to a group of people who are intelligent, determined, balanced, and in good moral and physical health. Such people are rare compared to the masses.
Well, he acknowledged he was very full of himself.
He acknowledged the fact that he had a superiority complex. I don't think a lot of people think well of you, think highly of you when you make a comment like this that basically, comes out and says unremorsefully that, hey, I just think I'm better than everybody else.
Yeah.
Or most people. I think I'm better than most. Now, you might think that. Maybe a lot of people think that. I wouldn't advise writing it in an email.
For everybody to read.
Or saying it on a podcast. The Mirror reported that Xavier had a strict upbringing. He wrote in another email, all my adolescence was devoted to religion and faith under the influence of my grandmother and mother, to such an extent that I did not rebel like other adolescents, nor indulge in drugs or run after girls. Again, maybe why he thinks he's better than most.
Right.
Bruno de Stabenrath, Xavier's childhood friend, spoke to Unsolved Mysteries. The two met when they were 16 years old. Stabenrath said that Xavier met Agnes in the early 1980s. She was 16 or 17. He was 20. Agnes was traditional and conservative. Xavier was in love with her, but he wanted some adventure. Bruno said that he broke up with Agnes to travel. A year later, he came home and learned that Agnes was pregnant with her first child, Arthur. This is when Xavier married her and raised Arthur as his own son. And it was said, Gibbs, that this was a scandal at the time.
I can see that being scandalous, knowing his place in the community.
His lineage, his aristocratic family. Agnes and Xavier moved to a townhouse in the center of Nantes. They lived in a neighborhood with other upper middle class families. The community respected the family. People in town reported that the family was quiet, middle class Catholics with no history of strange or illegal behavior. The Dupont de Ligonnès family lived what seemed to be an idyllic life until 2011. Arthur was studying IT at the university. Thomas was also at the university studying music. Anne worked part-time as a model and attended private school. Benoit was studying at the same school as Anne. Agnes volunteered teaching children at church, and Xavier sold advertising. Okay, so you've got a big family. There's a lot of kids here.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of them going to school, some going to college or at university, as they would say.
We have some of the kids going to some really expensive universities and the younger ones going to private schools,
which I'm sure were expensive as well. So I think what, I was kind of getting at, Gibbs, was you need some money, to fund this lifestyle. Takes money to pay for expensive universities, takes money to pay for private schools. Heck, it takes money just to put food on the table, for that many kids and all their activities and everything. So I think, what came out was that behind the scenes, Xavier was struggling financially. He had some business ventures, which had been unsuccessful. Prosecutor Xavier Ronson later announced that Xavier owned at least 50,000 euros, about $57,000 US, and only reported making 4,000 euros in 2010.
So, I also read in some of the research, he was trying all these different businesses, some in the United States, some in other areas, but none of them ever took off or just weren't successful. But with any business, what you report as your bottom line is really sometimes not your bottom line, right? So maybe he made more money, but that's what he reported as his income.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Obviously, if the guy's selling advertising, he's not doing that for 4,000 euros a year.
Right.
But if you're losing money on a number of businesses, then, okay, that brings whatever salary he was making in the advertising world down really low because you're counting in all those business losses.
Yeah. I think for him, though, he was trying to find a way to make massive amount of money because he didn't have the money that for someone in his position should have had, because from what I read, his father squandered it away.
So it's a good point, right? He has an image to uphold. He has this family name. And we already mentioned it, right? This guy thinks that, he's better than the masses. I'm not saying it. He said it.
Right.
He wrote it. Add on top of that, the fact that you have a lot of mouths to feed. You got a lot of tuition to pay for.
Yeah.
You need money. And, it came out that he was deeply in debt. According to France 24, after the murders, rumors came out that in 2010, Xavier wrote to friends about his financial troubles. He said he was contemplating suicide, alone or collective, shooting up the house while everyone is sleeping.
What a strange message to get if you're a friend. What do you do with something like that?
Well, yeah, I don't know. It would be different if I think one of my friends, or maybe let's say you emailed me or sent me a message saying, I'm struggling. I'm having a tough time. I'm depressed. Okay. Let's see what we can do to help you out. This is a much different message. This is not only am I thinking about ending my life, I'm thinking about ending the lives of my entire family.
Yeah.
But this question comes up all the time. What do you do with that kind of, you'd have to call disturbing information? It comes out in a lot of the tragedies that we've seen in recent years, that, some of these individuals who have done some terrible things have told people essentially what they were going to do. And those people had to make a decision. What do I do with this information? I think more often than not, what happens is people don't believe it. They just think somebody's blowing off steam. They're not really going to do this. Now, obviously, when somebody really does something, in hindsight, it doesn't look good. And I'm sure those people feel really bad. Agnes wrote in an online forum that she was unhappy with her marriage and she was afraid of what she called her old-fashioned husband. She wrote, "The father is the head. He gives an order. We execute it without seeing to question or understand, period." She also felt like she lacked affection and friends and worried about their family finances. She wrote in another post, "If we all die at once, then everything would be over. We would no longer miss anything."
Really sad.
It is sad. It also seems very prophetic. knowing that, almost everyone in this family is murdered.
And another sad part about this is that in some other research, she tried to reach out more than once, telling people that she was, unhappy with the marriage, as she stated here, but it was more of a loveless marriage over time, that he was consumed with his businesses, working in his lower level office, never really interacting with her at all. And she felt disconnected. And she said he was good with the kids, but even the kids started feeling disconnected to their dad.
According to the Mirror, Xavier allegedly had a mistress in Paris for several years from whom he asked for money.
Yeah, I think he got around 50,000 euros out of her.
In the early 2000s, the family tried to move to Florida, but they weren't able to do so. Couldn't really find a lot of details on why they were unable to make this move to the U.S., but it was said they spent a lot of money attempting the move. From 2001 to 2011, Xavier lost a lot of money when his businesses failed, but he told his friends that he ran a successful business and that he traveled the country. Basically, he didn't want his children to be embarrassed by the fact that they had no money. Xavier became desperate to keep up the image of the perfect family.
Well, according to him, he's the perfect individual, so he should have the perfect family.
Well, and this is really giving me some John List type vibes. If you remember back to the John List episode that we did, he had some similar thoughts. He had this image to uphold, and he wasn't able to do it.
Right.
Financially, he struggled. He wanted his family to have this. He thought they should have this, and this, and he couldn't provide it. And obviously, as we know in that story, things went really badly for his family. Xavier's father passed away from a heart attack on January 20th, 2011. At that point, he took on the title of Count Dupont de Ligonnès. Xavier handled cleaning out his father's house. He was looking for an old ring, financial records, and cash. But as he began managing his father's financial affairs, he quickly realized his father's estate had no money. Gibbs, all he inherited was a .22 caliber rifle.
It must have been really disappointing to find out that his father was broke.
Well, I'm sure there was some grieving on his part. I mean, he lost his father. I don't know how close he was to his father, but then factor in this financial situation that he's in. He's in debt. His businesses have failed. I can imagine his first thought was probably, I'm sad that my dad died, but now my financial troubles are over because I'm going to inherit all his money. But there's no money.
No. And being a count is not going to help him out in this situation.
And most .22 rifles are not worth much at all. Now, in the months leading up to the murders, it was said Xavier exhibited some pretty strange behaviors. On February 2nd, 2011, he got his firearms license. And apparently he didn't have an interest in weapons until he inherited his father's rifle. He learned to shoot the .22 and even purchased a silencer on March 12, 2011. He practiced his shooting at a local rifle club, which was later confirmed by the club's president. Xavier presented a certificate that declared him mentally sound enough to own a firearm. Instructor Benoit Hérault later told the police that Xavier had started off with a .22 pistol, but in February of 2011, he began bringing a .22 carbine with a 10-round magazine. He said he inherited it from his father. His sons Arthur and Thomas started joining him for lessons, and his youngest son Benoit was supposed to come at some point in the future. According to France 24, this Benoit guy described Xavier as not exuberant. He said, we talked of music, and he liked country and blues. With his son Thomas, who was a musician, we even did a jamming session together. Before they disappeared, both Agnes and Xavier made strange statements that they were taking the kids out of school and moving to Australia. Xavier even told people he was a secret agent in witness protection. All right, we're getting into strange territory here. We got some Jason Bourne type stories being told. The children's school received a letter that said the family was moving to Australia. The headmaster of the school told the police that he received a check covering the remaining tuition after he learned the family was planning to move out of the country. And I actually, found this to be kind of odd. You're notifying the school that the entire family is moving to Australia, yet you go ahead and pay the remaining tuition, which in my view seems like it would have taken you past the point where you would be living in France.
Especially if you're struggling financially.
Yeah, I had a hard time kind of making sense of it. Now, we don't have all the dates and, the exact timing of everything. Xavier sent out a letter to his relatives on his family's behalf, claiming he was working with the DEA and that they were going into the witness protection program. On April 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th, members of Xavier and Agnes's families received their letters. The letters contained some of the following statements. As you know, I've had links with the U.S. We are being looked after by the American government. The Americans have recruited me, transferred to the USA to infiltrate an international drug ring. This will be hard. You won't see us for a long while. No emails, no text messages, no telephone. The letters also instructed the families to keep this information secret. And what I found very interesting was that these were typed letters that went out to all these different family members, but each one was signed by the entire family.
Yes, now it's like you got this secret agent stuff going on, DEA, going to Australia, working for the U.S. government. Definitely bizarre.
Well, it's bizarre for him to start telling everybody. But when you put it down on paper and then your entire family signs it, I'm sure they read it.
Sure.
So were there questions asked of Dad? Hey, what's going on? Or was he able to make them believe, that some of this stuff was true? No doubt that family members thought that the letters were strange. What they didn't think was that Xavier or Agnes had any reason to lie to them. Agnes's family sent the letter to the local DA. What they were concerned about was that they didn't think Agnes would just leave without calling them. And I think most people would be in that same boat. If you're a close family member, you're not just going to receive a letter detailing out the plans.
Right.
And that you won't see me for a long time. I would be, expecting at the very least a phone call.
If not a personal visit.
A personal visit, let's get a croissant, maybe a whatever coffee type beverage or tea they drink over there in France. But
right.
Yeah, a sit down or at the very least a personal phone call. Number one, to me, Gibbs, a typewritten letter is a little impersonal to send to family. I know people do it like if you're doing like a yearly Christmas letter, just because you're sending so many copies out, you don't want to have to handwrite them all.
But if you really are doing what this letter says you're doing, I wouldn't think you want any record of it. Why wouldn't you just want to call them up on the phone and tell them what you're doing?
Yeah, that's a good point. Or maybe you do want a record of it. And, maybe that's a something that we'll explore as we move through the episode. True Crime All the Time Unsolved is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Let's face it, sometimes multitasking can be overwhelming. Like when your favorite podcast is playing and the person next to you is talking and your car fan is blasting, all while you're trying to find the perfect parking spot. But then again, sometimes multitasking is easy, like quoting with Progressive Insurance. They do the hard work of comparing rates so you can find a great rate that works for you, even if it's not with them. Give their nifty comparison tool a try, and you might just find getting getting the rate and coverage you deserve is easy. All you need to do is visit Progressive's website to get a quote with all the coverages you want, like comprehensive and collision coverage or personal injury protection. Then you'll see Progressive's direct rate, and their tool will provide options from other companies all lined up and ready to compare, so it's simple to choose the rate and coverages you like. Press play on comparing auto rates. Quote at Progressive.com to join the over 27 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary on how you buy. Oh, Gibbs, I love that sound. That's the sound of another sale on Shopify, the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. Shopify gives entrepreneurs the resources once reserved for big business. So upstarts, startups, and established businesses alike can sell everywhere, synchronize online and in-person sales, and effortlessly stay informed. I noticed the big difference when we switched to using Shopify 3 or 4 years ago to sell our podcast merch. The minute we switched, it was like everything became incredibly simple. That's what Shopify does for you. That's what it did for us. And we still use it today. Like mine, Shopify powers millions of businesses from first sale to full scale. It also allows you to reach customers online across social networks with an ever-growing suite of channel integrations and apps, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and more. Go to shopify.com/unsolved, all lowercase, for a free 14-day trial and get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. Grow your business with Shopify today. Go to shopify.com/unsolved right now. Shopify.com/unsolved. Fresh from San Diego, California, comes the only sunglasses brand I'm ever going to wear again. I'm talking about Blenders Eyewear, and you're going to be just as hooked when you see how awesome these shades are. I got the black jackets, and I've been wearing them basically every day. I'm amazed by the quality, the style, and the creativity that goes into these sunglasses. And unlike expensive big brand shades that you've probably lost or smashed in the past, Blenders are actually affordable. So you're not going to shed as many tears when the inevitable happens. You can actually wear them and not have to worry about them because you drop so much money on a pair of sunglasses. Blender's team of in-house designers are constantly coming out with new styles. And what I noticed is that they have some amazing colors. They also have prescription glasses, readers, and blue lights, as well as a snow collection with goggles and accessories. Live life in forward motion with Blenders today. To score 15% off your Blenders purchase, visit blenderseyewear.com and enter promo code TCATVIP. That's blenderseyewear.com, code TCATVIP for 15% off. Blenders, rocked with pride worldwide. In the days before the murders, Xavier purchased 4 bags of quicklime, which was found on top of the bodies and the bags that the bodies were in. So I think it's an understatement to say this doesn't make you look good when your entire family is found murdered, you're missing, and it comes out that you bought 4 bags of quicklime, and quicklime was found on the bodies. Doesn't necessarily mean it was the quicklime you bought, but wow, doesn't look good.
Does not.
Neighbors expressed concerns about the family on April 13th. They noticed that the blinds hadn't been open for days. A woman named Estelle Chapon lived on the same street as the family. She did clothing alterations for the family and saw them almost every day. She said their home was always lively and filled with the sounds of Benoit and Thomas practicing their instruments together. In early April, Estelle passed by and saw the house closed up and a note on the mailbox to return all mail to the sender. She thought this was very strange. She later told Unsolved Mysteries, "I saw the house all closed up. I've always seen that house with the shutters open. It was a shock. I knew something terrible had happened." The next day, she said the house was the same, and again it was the same the following day. She called the police on April 13th for a welfare check. The police had a locksmith open the front door, but police found no evidence of a struggle at the house. There was a note taped to the mailbox that read, "Return all mail to sender." They found everything in its place, except for the fact that all the closets were open and some of the beds were missing their sheets. It was their belief that the family left on their own, so there wasn't really anything for them to do. Only one car was missing, which was Thomas's small sports car. Estelle was concerned, though, because she knew that car could not fit the entire family and their 2 large dogs.
Yeah, reading through the research, it was a car that would typically fit 3 adults. When you have 2 big black labs, and then you have your family members.
Large family.
Yeah, where's everybody sitting? Plus luggage.
Can we go back to the fact that this lady does alterations but sees them every day? Is she a good friend, or is she literally doing alterations for them every single day?
Yeah, I'm guessing she's just a good friend. I mean, that's a lot of alterations.
Yeah, I think she did alterations for them, but I can't imagine she was doing something every day. Although, big family, I don't know, maybe they were passing down clothes and needing them altered all the time.
But you know, she's a very observant lady.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Number one, noticing that she's not seeing movements. The shutters are closed. And then, the part about the car, it's pretty smart.
Yeah.
She knows how big that car is. She knows how many people can fit in there. She knows for a fact that the entire family and both dogs are not leaving in that car. Now, on the part of the police, they didn't find any evidence that anything was wrong. So what are they going to do? It sounds like they were going to pack it in. There wasn't anything for them to do in their eyes. But on April 15th, the police went back to the house to do another welfare check. This time, they saw that photos were missing from their frames. And I'm assuming, Gibbs, that this was noticeable because they had just been there 2 days before, and now they're seeing something different. The pictures were there, now they're not. Agnes's family was insistent that something was wrong. On the 18th, the 19th, and the 20th, police returned to do more searches of the home. But an official investigation didn't begin until April 19th. Investigators couldn't find any evidence of bank transactions or airport travel to prove that the family moved to Australia. And I think that would be very easy to track. It seems to me as though it would make it very evident.
Yeah.
If you're going to Australia, you're going to need to either withdraw money or transfer money, get a cashier's check, something.
Yeah, you're going to need to secure housing or wherever you're going to live when you get there, which is going to require money.
And the other thing is the airport travel.
Yeah.
If you're not showing up on any flight manifest or, any list of passengers, then you didn't leave the country.
Right.
You didn't get on a plane. It was on April 21st, 2011, that police uncovered the remains of Agnes, Arthur, Thomas, and Benoit underneath the garden terrace. Xavier was nowhere to be found. Officers first discovered a severed leg under the terrace. Further digging revealed 5 bodies. They were wrapped inside sheets and bags covered in quicklime and buried with religious icons. Well, we might have discovered where the missing sheets from the beds went. Yeah. We've already talked about this quicklime, which doesn't make Xavier look good because he's nowhere to be found. Both of the family's black labs were also shot and buried beneath the terrace. Neighbors reported hearing howling during the estimated time of the murders, but none of them reported hearing the gunshots. And it was determined, Gibbs, that the 5 family members and both dogs were shot with a .22 rifle, similar to the one Xavier inherited from his father.
Yeah, and if you remember, he also bought a silencer for that shortly after inheriting it.
And so that could be the reason why neighbors didn't report hearing gunshots. A .22 caliber rifle is fairly quiet compared to many other guns. With a silencer on it, it is super quiet, depending on the silencer. With a silenced .22, a lot of times, really all you hear is the action of the bolt going back and forth. If it's a semi-automatic, I don't know what kind of .22 this is. If it's a bold action, it would be even quieter because there's really nothing moving. It was determined that all of the children had traces of drugs in their system, but Agnes did not. It was also determined that they had been shot in the head while sleeping. The autopsy described it as a methodical execution.
And I actually saw in the research it was 2 shots to the head of each victim.
And to me, Gibbs, that makes it even more likely that the killer used a silencer on the 22. Because you would think the minute a shot was fired inside that house, without a silencer, it would be loud enough to wake people up. And then from that point on, how would each person be shot in the bed while they were sleeping? Well, I think it would be possible with a silenced 22. Now, even though Agnes didn't have drugs in her system, she did use a sleep apnea machine at night. Her machine stopped suddenly at 3 a.m. on April the 3rd or 4th. So police theorized that she was the first victim. Police theorized that Arthur, Anne, Benoit, and Agnes were killed around the same time, on April 3rd or April 4th, but Xavier's oldest son, Thomas, was killed after that. Thomas was also buried separately from the other 4 victims. And I think, they came to this conclusion, Gibbs, that Thomas was killed separately because he wasn't at home on April 3rd. He was at university. Police believe that Xavier killed the family on Sunday the 3rd, and then he killed Thomas on Tuesday the 5th. It was reported that Xavier told Thomas to come back home because Agnes had a bicycle accident and was in the hospital in a coma. The two reportedly went out to dinner on April 4th, but didn't speak to each other.
Sounds like a fun dinner.
Thomas's phone was used in the days before his disappearance. His last communication was Tuesday at midnight when he texted a friend. His friend responded after midnight, but Thomas never answered. So I get it. Police are putting together this timeline based on certain events, and it does make some sense.
Sure does.
To do it that way. Now, one thing that was pretty clear from the research was that people who knew Xavier, a lot of them didn't believe that the letters sounded like he wrote them. Some local residents claimed to have seen or spoken with Agnes in the days after her estimated death, but the sightings were never confirmed. Investigators believed that Xavier hesitated to kill Thomas because he was his oldest son and the heir to the Dupont de Ligonnès heritage.
Well, then maybe he realized there was not much heritage to pass off.
Or he realized there was no other way. He had no other choice. He had already gone this far. We're speculating here, but
if he was the one that committed the murders.
It was said that there were no traces of blood in the bedrooms, living room, foyer, bathroom, walls, none on the furniture, the floors, or the ground. Crime scene investigators didn't find any forensic evidence implicating Xavier in the murders. So, there's some things here, Gibbs, to discuss. The no traces of blood in the bedrooms and really other parts of the house. That one really has me stumped. If you have 5 people shot in their beds, how can there not be blood anywhere?
Unless whoever did it had a heck of a cleanup crew.
Yeah, I'm struggling with that. Now, the forensic evidence, I get. What are you going to find? He lives in that house. So, whether it's fingerprints or fibers or whatever it is, you would expect to find all of that inside the house. And even if you found it on the bodies, okay, those people live in the house as well. They interact. What would it even mean to find some of that stuff? Much different than if a stranger, goes into a house. If you find fingerprints, if you find fibers and things like that, it means something much different than it does against someone who actually lives in that house. Prosecutor Xavier Ronson announced that the bodies were believed to be Agnes Dupont de Ligonnès and her children. And he said, so the investigation of a worrying disappearance has become one for kidnap and murder. And we see that in a lot of cases, right? What starts out as, where are these people?
Right.
It really starts out as a missing persons type of case, quickly moves to a homicide investigation once the bodies are found. Xavier quickly became the main suspect in the murders. On April 21st, the police started tracking his movements after the murders. They found out that he'd been practicing shooting at a local rifle club. They found out that he purchased that silencer. He also bought garbage bags and quicklime before the murders. And then they learned about his debt and the fact that he received no inheritance.
Well, look, I mean, he's the father, the husband. He's obviously going to be looked at because they couldn't find him. But then you add all those factors in.
Yeah, even without that, you would think he'd be suspect number one.
Sure.
Just based on the fact that everybody's dead and you're gone.
Now you add all those other factors in and it looks probably pretty good to the police.
Yeah, on True Crime All the Time this week, we talked about stressors or some type of event that precipitates some people to commit murder. And I think maybe that's what they're looking at here. He's broke. He's more than broke. He's in debt. His father dies. That's an event. He finds out that he has no inheritance. That's an event. That could all be looked at as precipitous to committing these murders. Xavier went to the rifle club for the last time on April 1st. He told his instructor that his sons couldn't make it to their April 9th appointment, but he didn't provide a reason. Xavier had once asked his instructor about a silencer, but Benoit Hero told the police that he told Xavier it was pointless at a shooting range. He said he witnessed Xavier shooting with a silencer one time. He also confirmed that Xavier had made some bizarre claims of being a secret agent and leaving France to join witness protection. And I do have to disagree with this guy on one thing. It's not pointless to use a silencer at a shooting range. I've seen people do it many times. It just makes the gun quieter.
Well, and if you've never shot a gun with one, I think you would want to see how it feels, sounds, shoots with one. I wouldn't know. I'm just saying if you're buying a silencer, wouldn't you want to at least try it out?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Sure.
Yeah. And where's the best place to try it out? Shooting range.
Shooting range, yeah. You'd want to test it out. Police searched for Xavier around town. They couldn't find him. They learned that he used his car to flee town on April 10th. His car was captured on a speed camera between Nantes and La Rochelle. He ate at a restaurant and spent the night at a hotel in La Rochelle. He may have financed his escape with Agnes's jewelry. Her jewelry was missing from the house. So they are starting to put things together. They don't have anything absolutely concrete, but at the very least, Gibbs, you put all these things together, it looks terrible for this guy.
Doesn't look good.
According to the New York Post, on April 12, 2011, Xavier was seen at a luxury hotel in the south of France. Staff described him as being well-dressed and relaxed. He signed in under the name Xavier Laurent. He checked into a luxury suite and ordered half a bottle of Burgundy. Staff member Sylvie Boucher said, people on their own always stand out a bit more than others, but he stood out because he chatted a lot with the staff. He was very nice with everybody. He showed no signs of worry. And on the contrary, he appeared very relaxed. So obviously, we have to break this down a little. This is a guy who financially is in trouble. So he's going to check in to a very expensive hotel and get a suite, no less. Order some expensive Burgundy.
Well, he only got half a bottle.
Well, he got half a bottle, but I'm sure it was still very expensive. And that's on top of the fact that he's by himself, and we know that his family had already been murdered.
Right. Very relaxed for somebody that the police believe might have murdered his entire family.
Xavier was last seen on April 15th in Roquebrune-sur-Argens. CCTV captured him leaving a Formula One hotel and taking 30 euros out of an ATM. It's believed that he stayed at the hotel on April 14th. CCTV shows him abandoning his car in the parking lot and walking into the woods. It also shows him carrying a large bag, which police think contained the .22 rifle. Now, this Roquebrune-sur-Argens is a very rugged area with caves and abandoned mines. Police suspect that he may have taken his life here. The area also, though, provides access to trains and ships, which would have allowed him to flee the country pretty quickly.
Well, maybe that bag, maybe he found some valuable items that he could trade for a place on the boat.
Yeah, we don't really know what was in the bag.
Right.
And they don't either. They're speculating. But I think, one of the things they were basing the suicide theory on was that, this guy was using his bank card. He wasn't avoiding cameras. He wasn't really trying to hide. So, police kind of thought that maybe he was visiting some of his favorite places before he ended his life. I think it did come out, Gibbs, that some of the places he went to were places where he and Agnes had spent time together, or, where some of the kids were born.
Maybe he did take his life. Right now, we don't know. Until they find a body, all we can do is wonder.
On April 23rd, 2011, French authorities issued an international search alert for Xavier. He was wanted for questioning about his involvement in the deaths of his family. So, from my understanding, it was a pretty massive manhunt for this guy. There were 5 days of searches around the Roquebrune-sur-Argens area, but they failed to find him or his body. Further searches around the country and interviews with 25 of his friends and relatives didn't lead to finding him. Police searched underground caves and abandoned potassium mines in the area to look for Xavier in both 2011 and 2012. An anonymous judicial source told Le Parisien, "We won't be going back to the area already searched, but we will be probing places which are difficult to access, including isolated hiking trails." So you already mentioned it, Gibbs, but Xavier's body has never been found. There have been hundreds of reported sightings over the years, and there's speculation that his family is helping hide him. To date, police have received over 1,000 leads in Italy, Africa, Thailand, and other countries.
Well, I mean, yeah, he could have family helping him, friends. I mean, with his status, I'm sure there's other people with similar status that would want to try to assist him.
Yeah, I agree with that. Investigators are still working with several theories. One is that Xavier ended his life. Another is that he's living somewhere off the grid. And I think the third is that he's being hidden by his family. Xavier's sister, Christine, has come out and said that she believes he's innocent and has hired a lawyer to represent the family. Online sources discuss an old blog allegedly written by Xavier's sister and brother-in-law called Another Point of View on the Dupont de Ligonnès case. It's not confirmed if the blog post was actually written by a family member, but we'll read the blog post. We had to translate it from French to English, so depending on the accuracy of the Google Translate, it reads, "We would like to inform our readers, occasional as well as habitual, that as of this day, May 13th, 2013, we will no longer publish a post on this blog. This one, created for a simple purpose of information, having achieved its objective. As relatives of Xavier, Agnes, and their children, our reading of the case is necessarily different from that of a vast public who, by definition, did not know them before, and we had to testify to the true personality of the father's family above suspicion. We also had to make our conviction heard, or better, our certainty that there was no assassination and that it was therefore not a criminal case but a police case. which conceals behind the staging of a false family drama, poisoned by an extraordinary media hype and exfiltration of witnesses. It's done. And in the pages of this blog, everything is said. For us, this is a closed case. Everyone is free to form their own opinion. We reiterate our warm thanks to all the people who have given us their support in one way or another over the past 2 years. So again, not sure who wrote this. I think a lot of people think it was written by a family member. I think what I do take from it is that they do not believe that Xavier killed his entire family. I think that much is certain. The family attorney that was hired told Unsolved Mysteries, for many friends, it's impossible that Xavier is the murderer. The location of the bodies was very low to the ground. Xavier had back pain that kept him from bending over. So it would have been impossible for him to dig holes under the terrace.
For somebody like me and you that have both went through tremendous back pain.
Yes.
We can relate to that.
I can relate to that. I could also say, could someone power through if they absolutely had to get something done and there was no way around it and fight through whatever pain they had? Possibly.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I don't think you can say because this guy had back pain, he couldn't have done what was done. It's pretty tough for me to make that argument.
Right. Could have been difficult, but not impossible.
Well, we also don't know what level of back pain he was experiencing at the time.
True.
Could you hop yourself up on a bunch of painkillers?
I hop myself up all the time.
You do. You're hopped up on Mountain Dew right now.
Exactly.
But if someone did that, let's say, popped some Percocets or, some type of OxyContin or some strong painkiller, could you push through? And I think the answer is possibly yes.
Yeah.
So that's a tough argument, I think, to make. Xavier's friend, Bruno de Stabenrath, says it's not possible that Xavier would hurt his family because he was a true friend. He was kind and helpful and would go above and beyond for him when he was sick or hurt. And that I understand. As a good friend, I think in the face of some of the evidence, you'd have a very hard time believing this person that you love, that you've known for such a long time, could be capable of, committing such a heinous act.
Right. How could someone do that to their own family?
On April 28th, 2015, human bones were found near Freyas, near the last location where Xavier was spotted, but DNA analysis confirmed the remains were not his. On July 24th, 2015, a note was sent to a journalist at AFP, allegedly from Xavier. The note was written on the back of a family photo of two of his sons. It said, "I am still alive. From then until this hour." The journalist turned the note over to the police. The police tested for prints and handwriting analysis. It's not been confirmed, as far as I could tell, Gibbs, whether or not this note was really from Xavier. And I think many people have asked the question, was it possible that this was really him responding to this discovery of the bones? Because the timing is interesting, right? They discover the bones, they figure out that it wasn't him. The picture comes in saying, "I'm still alive."
Right.
I think the question is, why would somebody who's gone to all the trouble that he has to, let's say, get lost, right, and not be found, risk all of that for what? Is he looking for publicity? Most people who are on the run, that's the last thing that they want.
Right. They don't want any spotlight on them.
No. So I don't think, it would be for publicity, but what would it be for? Why risk it? In 2018, French police raided a monastery after receiving a report that Xavier might be there. Police received a tip that a monk at this monastery looked like Xavier. And this monastery is located pretty close to his last known location. I think the problem for police was that, all of these monks had taken a vow of silence. So they couldn't answer any questions.
Yeah.
Pretty tough to do your investigation.
So did you see him? Oh, you're not going to answer that.
No, not going to answer anything.
Right.
But I guess it was determined that none of the monks were Xavier. A man was arrested in Glasgow on October 11, 2019. He was suspected of being Xavier Dupont de Ligonnès. Officers at the Charles de Gaulle airport in Paris saw this guy boarding a flight to Glasgow and reported him to the Glasgow police. He was arrested once he landed there. And it was said, Gibbs, that his fingerprints initially matched Xavier's. But on October 12th, the DNA test came back negative. So obviously something wasn't correct there.
Right.
One of those two wasn't right. Scottish police even announced that this man's digital fingerprint matched Xavier's. He was allegedly using a passport stolen in 2014 that belonged to a man named Guillermo Joe. After this man's arrest, the police searched his house in Limay, in the suburbs of Paris. Neighbors told the press that he was Guy Joe, a Portuguese man married to a Scottish woman. A neighbor told France 24, he was born in Limay. We've been friends for more than 45 years. He was working with me at the Flynn's Renault factory before he retired 4 years ago. So either you've got the wrong guy,
right,
or all these people are lying and trying to cover up for him. It's very specific, though, and I think pretty easy to find out whether or not he worked there, retired from there. According to the Mirror, in October 2019, a French source said, this guy looks nothing like de Ligonnès, nor was the man who was arrested in Glasgow. It may be that Xavier has radically disguised himself over the years, but there are still lots of questions to be answered. The digital fingerprint identification was only partial. In October 2019, a female witness told a French newspaper that Xavier started a new life in Scotland. It was said that a very reliable source specifies that the fugitive had even remarried in Great Britain, but there was no confirmation that they gave this information to the police. There's a lot going on, Gibbs. I mean,
there is.
Over the years, tips, sightings, police believing that this person or that person is Xavier. The case is still ongoing. We mentioned Unsolved Mysteries. They kind of reignited international interest in the case with the premiere of their episode in 2020. As we've seen in a lot of previous cases, people with money and resources are sometimes able to escape justice for many years. But when you think about authorities all over the world are looking for this guy, it's very likely that if he's still alive, he's going to be found, he's going to be arrested, and if he is, he's going to be tried for the murders of his family. We can't say for sure that he's guilty. I think you'd be hard-pressed with everything that has come out to think that this guy, if caught, is not going on trial for the murders of his family. Now, I said people with money and resources can, often do things that others can't. Yes, he was broke, he was in debt, but I think you kind of brought the point up. Name recognition alone. Who does he know? I think a guy like that can probably get his hands on some money or get somebody to help him much more easily than, most of us living everyday normal lives who are not counts.
For sure. If he needed $20,000, I'm sure he could go to somebody pretty quickly and receive it. But then you have to ask yourself, what about the DEA? Is there any truth about that story?
You mean like he might actually be in the witness protection program?
Yeah. Maybe the people that he was going to testify against or had involvement with killed his family, and maybe they have him in protection.
And he figured he better get out, or they figured he got to get out. I don't put anything off the table.
Sure.
Now, I do kind of work in degrees of what's more likely, what's less likely.
Yeah.
But we've seen a lot of strange outcomes. We've seen a lot of outcomes that we thought we would see when cases are finally solved down the road.
Right.
But we've seen some that have come out of left field. So it's really hard to kind of completely discount anything. But this is just one that we'll have to continue to monitor. I have high hopes that if he's still alive, he'll be found. He can't hide forever.
Right.
Eventually, who knows? I got facial recognition. Something's going to happen. Somebody's going to, provide a tip, collect a reward, whatever. But that's it for our episode on the unsolved murders of the Dupont de Ligonnès family.
International.
Well, you know what they say, Gibbs? There's crime all over the world.
That is true.
We got some voicemails. You want to check those out?
Let's hear them.
Hello, this is Tasha from Eastern Connecticut. I was listening to the Ayla Reynolds case, and you were discussing how likely it would have been for Ayla to escape the house. And it reminded me of a story when my little brother was about 2. My parents had installed deadbolts at the top of the doors so that teenagers in the house could come and go, but my younger brother could not get out. Well, my little brother pushed a dog crate up to the door and managed to unlock the deadbolt at the top of the door and get out of the house. Just an interesting little story about how kids are determined to do things they will. Have a great day. Stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
Yeah, that is an interesting story. And I'll tell you what, Gibbs, after we got done recording that episode, because I was kind of leery, I think we both were during the episode.
Sure.
It's been so long since our kids were that little, we couldn't really remember.
Right.
Well, after you left, I went upstairs, I asked my wife, and she said, absolutely. Our kids were doing this, our kids were doing that at that age. So it's just the fact that I just couldn't remember.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. I'm sorry. This is Marty Turgeon calling again. I grew up in Maine, and I just wanted to let you know that what you called Bangor is Bangor. And those of us who are listening that are from Maine really appreciate Bangor instead of Bangor. But the episode on Ayla Reynolds was great. It's a tragic episode and just very, very sad. But I just wanted to let you know that Bangor is a great little city in the state of Maine. Thank you so much for all you do, and I love listening. I've been a listener for many, many years, maybe 4 or 5 years, and have listened and enjoyed all of your episodes. Have a great day. Bye.
All right. Thank you very much. Yeah, Gibbs, I got a lot of voicemails, a lot of emails about my Bangor pronunciation. Stephen King called. He wasn't happy with it.
Oh, man. When Stephen calls.
I know. I had to apologize to him. Well, the next time we go to Bangor, we'll know.
We'll know.
Although it's hard for me to say it that way. For some reason, it doesn't roll off the tongue that way.
I know how you feel.
It's easier to say. It's easier to say the other way.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike and Gibby. This is Diesel from Wisconsin. Absolutely love your podcast, TCAT and TCAT Unsolved. You guys do an awesome job, and keep up the good work. Keep your own time ticking.
Short and sweet.
Like that.
I like it, but I appreciate the kudos. I know you do too, Gibbs. Means a lot.
It does.
We're going to mess up like Bangor, but
yes, you will.
We keep trying. All right, buddy. That is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
All this month, stream the funniest films for free on Pluto TV. Watch comedy classics like Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy, and Mean Girls. Or drop in for a Tyler Perry marathon with a Medea family funeral and Medea's witness protection. Pluto TV also has hundreds of channels and thousands of movies and TV shows like Get Shorty, Be Cool, Key and Peele, Comedy in Color, and more. And no contracts, no subscriptions, no fees, no joke. So download the Pluto TV app on your favorite streaming device and start laughing today. Pluto TV, drop in, watch free.
Work takes up most of your time. That's why you should use Stamps.com to save time with your mailing and shipping. Stamps.com will simplify your postage needs and add valuable time back into your workday, so you have flexibility to focus on more important things. Stamps.com can handle your mailing and shipping needs with rates up to 88% off UPS and USPS. Send invoices, checks, certified mail, packages, and anything else you need to keep your business running with Stamps.com. If you sell online, connecting with every major marketplace and shopping cart is easy. Plus, you can schedule package pickups through their dashboard and automatically see your cheapest and fastest shipping options from different carriers with Stamps.com's Rate Advisor. Add more flexibility to your workday with Stamps.com. Go to Stamps.com/program to sign up for a special offer. No contract, cancel anytime. That's Stamps.com/program.